This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Shelby County Mayor Mark Luttrell, tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. We are joined tonight by Shelby County Mayor Mark Luttrell. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you, Eric.
And Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. We'll start with a conversation. Maybe it's almost a national debate. It's obviously a local and statewide conversation about the health of cities, the health of counties, the health of state governments, federal governments talking about it. A lot of it's about taxing and spending. It's a lot about debt level. I think probably over the last few years coming out of the recession and the financial crisis, people have been at least, if not educated, told about debt levels and pensions and all that more than they in many, many years. From the Shelby County point of view, what is the financial health, big picture, small picture of Shelby County?
Well, Eric, I'm pleased to say that Shelby County government's pretty fiscally sound. Our bond rating is still AA+, where it's been for quite a while. We are paying our debt down progressively. Our debt about 4 years ago was sitting at $1.8 billion. It's now at about $1.4 billion. It'll be under $1.4 by the end of this fiscal year. So we're progressively paying our debt down. Most of our debt's attributed, in fact, 1.1 of that 1.4 billion is attributed to school construction over the years. But we're progressively paying that debt down. We're living within our means. Our pension fund is being fully funded on an annual basis. We've taken some hits from the market the last few years, but we're rebounding from that, and we're sitting at about 88% funded at this point. Bill, I think I told you the other day 82%, so
yeah,
I need to correct that.
Yeah.
But we're sitting at about 88% and continuing to pay that down. So we are financially in good shape. We're living within our budget, which we're required to do, and I'm pleased with where we are. We're starting to see some indications of a turn in the economy. We're still facing, across Shelby County, which certainly impacts the financial welfare of the county, we're still facing higher than normal unemployment. Mm-hmm. The number of people below the poverty line is still a concern to us, which all are things that impact the budget. But from the standpoint of our financial stability in county government, we're in good shape. We haven't gotten any letters from the comptroller.
We'll get to that. You touched on a couple of things. I want to come back to one thing that you said real quickly. The county debt is at $1.4 billion. It'll be under $1 billion by the end of this?
No, it'll be under $1.4 billion.
It'll be under $1.4
by the end of this fiscal year.
Yes. Okay. And the county was able, I think we had a couple of county commissioners on in the last few months, talked about having refinanced and sort of managed the debt well in a historically low interest rate environment. The county was able to refinance, I guess you would say, responsibly.
Yes. Well, we're constantly looking for ways to refinance debt. That's not an uncommon occurrence. Yeah. You'll see that take place sometimes as often as annually as those opportunities present themselves.
And you talked about the pension being 86% funded. What about health benefits? I mean, for retired workers, and then when you look out, that's another one that gets a lot of attention with cities and state level, federal level.
Well, it is. Certainly the cost of health care benefits is increasing annually. Our benefits are increasing annually. We have got to, as a county government, look very hard at those areas, and we are. Last year, Eric, we conducted a rather thorough efficiency study of county government and projecting out in the years ahead. And we're following some of the recommendations that have been made that are focusing on the health benefits plan. There's some adjustments to our health benefits plan this year. There'll be some other adjustments moving forward as we see opportunities to really move the needle in that area. Same with our pension fund. Yeah. Our benefits package is extremely expensive. Right now it's about 42% of salary. Wow. My church is about 15% of salary, so that gives you a little bit of comparison. Right. But we've got to take in consideration that going forward, there'll have to be some adjustments made to keep us in that sound financial condition that we're in.
Okay, Bill.
You talked about this earlier, Mayor, about the switch to defined contributions. How do you see that unfolding, that particular decision?
Well, as I think you're aware, we really can't make any changes to our system that affect current employees. There's some minor adjustments that can be made, but our current employees, we have a contract with them. I think it's as solid as a contract. So the changes that we make will be really going forward with future employment. And we're certainly looking at an array of different approaches to the contribution scheme. And I think we're going to have to bring county government in line with more of what's taking place in the private sector. To go into a little bit of background, at one time county government salaries were considered to be rather low, and county government compensated by having a generous benefits package. Well, over the years we've seen our salary come up to a very competitive level, but we've kept our benefits package at a high level, so it's a little bit out of balance with reality. So we're going to have to adjust our benefits package so that we're not consuming 42%.
Yeah, and this, if for folks listening, I mean, pensions, defined benefit, it's not the sexiest issue, but
No.
those are the issues that were critical to sinking Detroit.
Well, it is.
The state of Illinois is in huge trouble over. I read a thing recently that the military benefits, healthcare, pensions to military folks is skyrocketing, and the military is very worried about how they're going to actually bullets and ships and planes when they're spending so much on benefits. And again, it goes back to that same thing you described. Historically, public sector jobs were low paid, so they had high benefits. Now it's relatively high paid.
Right.
Really high paid, but relatively high paid, relatively high
Well,
benefits.
it is.
So it's a sea change nationally.
It's the very foundation of the problems that you're seeing in municipal government. I worked for the federal government several years ago, back in the 70s and 80s, and federal government back then started making some adjustments to the benefits packages, and it has served them well. But the reality of it is, if we're going to stay solid and solvent, we're going to have to make some adjustments going forward.
Also on the issue of funding, I mean, there is a sea change in the funding of education that's been going on and evolving, and we've talked a lot about the schools on this show and the papers. You've obviously been right in the middle of all that. And I had someone who's very close to these issues who we were talking about having you on and talking about the fact that county government will now be the source of funding, not just for all the schools within the county, including the municipal school districts. And they said, wait, I thought they had separate school districts out there. I thought they raised their taxes out there. I thought they were funding their own schools in Germantown and Collierville. But the funding still runs through county government. It
is, and everybody who pays a property tax is paying for education in Shelby County. Out of our property tax of $4 and whatever, 38 cents, about $1.91 of that goes to education. And every property owner in Shelby County, if you live in Bartlett or Memphis or Collierville, you're paying that. So we have an obligation to all the school systems. Now, granted, the municipal school districts also have a huge responsibility. Funding for education comes through a multitude of sources. It comes through some federal sources, state sources, city, county. The school budget, the total school budget is in excess of $1 billion. The county's contribution to that is $382 million. So you can see that there's a lot of money coming from a lot of different directions to fill that balance between 382 and 1.4.
Yeah, but that county, for the county, that 382 is the biggest number.
It's the biggest single number.
And that 382 goes from everywhere from Collierville to what will be the legacy county school system, which is mostly the Memphis schools. To
the money will be distributed across the county schools, the municipal schools and the county schools, based on an ADA, average daily attendance formula.
Right.
How many students you have in your school today, you get X number of dollars per student. So as you have noticed in the news the last few days, there's a great deal of competition that's taking place now among the schools to get students. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next few months how this kind of levels out among the municipalities. And then about the first of the school year, we'll start making payments to those school systems based upon their average daily attendance.
Next August.
Actually, this year, in August.
In August, Bill.
And also, this brings up kind of the balance that you have to strike in making the budget proposal when you get some idea of how much this is going to cost each of these suburban municipalities for their school system, because it will involve some mix of county funding on the formula you mentioned, the ADA formula, but there will also be some money from those local governments. From
Absolutely. Money from the local governments, and governments have some latitude there, but certainly there's sales tax that goes to education as well. So property tax goes to education, sales tax goes to education. All of the municipalities last year voted to increase their sales tax in their communities. And it's my understanding that their intent was to devote 100% of that to education. But they have some latitude there. So within the municipalities, they're going to be funding education with sales tax and with property tax from their residents, and then property tax revenue that comes from the county property tax as well. And then, of course, what you get through the state BEP formula, and then federal grants. So it's a lot of money coming from different directions.
Do you anticipate at this early stage in the discussions that those suburban school systems are going to come to you or to their respective governments for the startup cost?
Well, we've had some discussions with the municipalities about that. We'll continue to have some discussions about it. But we don't have a lot of flexibility in county government for advancing money. We're on a pretty tight schedule ourselves based upon when the revenue starts coming in from the property tax. We're going to look at where we can help the municipalities. It's been my objective from the very beginning that it's our responsibility in county government to see what we can do to help.
What are those startup costs? I mean, is that like they've hired superintendents and they've got some planning that's got to happen? And I mean,
many of these funding sources won't start hitting the municipalities until this summer.
Yeah.
But yet they're ramping up now. They've got to start signing contracts for teachers. They've got to start ordering supplies.
Right.
They have a great deal of startup. A great deal of that's got to happen between now and July. You think about it, they've got the municipalities got about 6 months to ramp up and be ready to go. They've got to be ready to go by about the 1st of July, really.
Do you think all of them will be ready? I'll put you on the spot.
Well, I hope they are. We're going to certainly work with those that may be struggling a little bit. So it's my objective to help them any way that we can in county government to hit that deadline.
I've asked a lot of people this as we've gotten the shape of the future school systems in Shelby County. I mean, there's so much uncertainty for 2-3 years. We now have this kind of we consolidated, and now we're deconsolidating into a very different shape than we were in before.
Yeah.
Separate school systems in the suburbs, a reshaped, in many ways, county school system that mostly serves the city.
Change.
It's a sea change. And then so much education reform going nationally, going on from the state level and so on. Are you happy? You're one of the few people who sits over the whole of this. You are, as we were talking about before the show, people sometimes forget that you're not just mayor of the suburb, you're mayor of Shelby County, including Memphis, including Collierville, Millington, everything. Are you happy with the way this all shook out, that the shape of the school system is right, appropriate?
I think relatively speaking, Eric, when you look at the chaos and confusion that we were facing 2 years ago and see where we are today, it's somewhat amazing.
Yeah.
We took 2 large systems and made a larger system, which is contrary to conventional wisdom. And then from the larger system, you're breaking up into 6 smaller systems where, again, that transition is taking place. So we're still very much in transition. I'm pleased to see that we're getting this whole discussion kind of out of the political arena.
Right.
And we're now getting it in the hands of the professionals in education. I've been pleased with the selections that I've seen for the superintendents in the municipalities, and I've talked to a number of the municipalities, and there seems to be a good working relationship that's moving forward. So relatively speaking, we're in a heck of a lot better shape than we could have been.
Do you see there being coordination, work between the county school system, Dorsey-Hobson, the legacy, I don't know, people call it the city school system, but it's the county school system, and some of the suburban schools? I've
been very pleased with what I have seen with Superintendent Hobson and his school board.
Right.
They seem to be, once again, professionals that are looking at this issue, and every indication seems to be that they're working with the municipalities. And I'm seeing that as well. So the professionals know what they've got to do, and they know the challenge that's ahead of them. So we're moving in the right direction. Goodness, it's still going to be a tough slog. I think this transition is going to take a few years before we really get settled. You talk to Hamilton County, They did it 10 years ago, and they're still transitioning.
Yeah.
Charlotte-Mecklenburg, still transitioning. Davidson County. So there's still some struggles ahead of us, but
Right.
Relatively speaking, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, Bill.
Let's switch gears here and talk about the tourism development zone that the city wants, that the city of Memphis wants to finance fairgrounds redevelopment. It seems as if we have a difference of opinion there about whether harnessing the sales tax revenue, the incremental sales tax revenue from that zone would affect education, public education funding in Shelby County or not. The city seems to be saying that it will not affect that. What is your belief about
Well,
how that works?
first of all, this is where county government and city government have got to be very careful that we don't step on each other's toes. What Memphis hopes to do with that property is really a Memphis decision. Where the county has an interest is the sales tax. And as we talked about earlier, there's a portion of sales tax that goes to education. I want to ensure that education in no way is going to be adversely impacted financially by this decision. And there are differing opinions about that. In fact, I've got a meeting today with Robert Lipscomb in the city and several people from the city and several folks from the county to see if we can work through this. At the county commission this past week, just before the county commission meeting, Mayor Wharton and I had talked, and Mayor Wharton expressed his desire to not in any way take money away from education. So he and I agree on that particular point. I think what we have to do is just take a look at the law and get some understanding of the law and appreciation for that particular fact. And if we can be assured that there'll be no financial adverse impact on education, then certainly I'll be supportive of what the city wants to do. And hopefully we can work through that. I promised the county commission I'd try to get back with them by their next meeting, which will be a week from this coming Monday, and see if we were able to get that particular question answered. That seems to be the issue that resonates with the county commission as well. So I think we're all interested in giving the city of Memphis the discretion that they need to develop their property, as long as it doesn't impact in any way the financing that we need for schools.
And to just explain, this involves a formula for the distribution of the sales tax
That's
revenue
correct.
within a zone of about 3 square
Right.
miles. And there is some kind of factor that's in there that is kind of at the heart of whether this happens.
Yes, it really, there's a baseline that's established that ensures education will still get tax funding out of that district. The area for discussion is the increase in tax revenue, sales tax revenue from the improvements in the TDZ that are in question. If the TDZ is going to generate more sales tax, then we want to make sure that that formula for ensuring that education gets its share of the sales tax is still in place. And there seems to be some ambiguity in the law in that particular place.
So do you have to go to the state for clarification on that?
Not really.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it is, because the state's the one that actually approves the TDZ. It's not.
Yeah, because
it's not
normally
done at
a
the local
lot of
level.
that money goes to the
Yeah.
state and then it comes back or
Yeah.
it's distributed throughout. TDZ allows the local government
Right.
to intercept some of that money
That's
in layman's
correct.
terms, right? And
That's correct.
as long as it's redeveloped to improve an area that otherwise isn't, functioning.
I think what we're really striving to do now, or what the city's striving to do, is to be able to go to Nashville with some degree of unanimity on this particular project.
Yeah, right.
Rather than, it makes it a lot easier for the state to make a decision if they see county government and city government agreeing.
Right.
If there's disagreement, then that makes it more difficult for them. So we're trying to get our disagreements worked out at the local level before we take it forward.
A TDZ on some high level is, we talk about changes in sales tax to redevelop an area. Similar concept to a pilot, in the sense that a pilot is about industry or companies that come in or that stay. A lot of criticism of pilots, a lot of, from some people who say it's just a big tax break for corporations, other people who say, look, you've got to, that's one of our weapons to compete, to keep companies in
I like
town.
to say tool, not weapon.
Excuse me. Well, yeah, I think some of the economic development folks that we've had on in private sector have maybe referenced them as weapons. But yes, in the political sphere, maybe you want to say tool. So that debate, what is it, some $100 million of pilots in the last number? Shelby County, Memphis uses the pilots aggressively. Electrolux, which has been open, it has 1,000 people or so working there. Mitsubishi, all kinds of, Nike just did a big expansion. I mean, all kinds of local companies have either been retained for expansion. Smucker's Jelly Peanut Butter is about to do just got a big pilot. How do you feel about pilots? Do you feel like they're big giveaways? Do you wish you had a different tool than them?
I do not think it's a big giveaway. We're always very careful with pilots to look at the benefit-cost ratio. And we never approve a pilot where the benefit-cost ratio is less than 1 to 1. And typically it's going to be about 1 to 1.5, which means that for every $1 abated, we want $1.50 return through capital investment, through salaries, wages, things of that nature. So pilots do not give away tax money, and that's one term that I hear so often. We give $1 relief on taxes for $1 plus return on that tax abatement.
And it's not as, I mean, one clarification, I think the media does a terrible job. I mean, we try, but I think generally there's a lot of confusion put out there about pilots in the media. That most of these companies are still paying property taxes. It's just they're paying at a lower rate because they're investing.
Well, they're paying the property tax, they're hiring more people, and they're making capital investment in construction, which benefits small business. Now, the second part of your question, we don't have that many tools in Tennessee. And in this tri-state area that we're in, we're competing with 2 other states that have different tools than we do.
That's kind of drive you nuts. I mean, it drives other people nuts because what happens is Shelby County gets compared to Nashville, and everybody says, well, Nashville doesn't do pilots, so why is Shelby County doing it? But Nashville isn't up against Mississippi. I mean, 10 feet from Mississippi, where Mississippi can do all these creative things, base a company there, but oh, by the way, you're going to be based in DeSoto County, but you've got the Grizzlies and the Tigers and an international airport or a big airport and all the things that a big city has, right? Nashville's not up against that.
We were in a meeting the other day where just that issue was being discussed. We were talking about, from a regional standpoint, how can we complement each other? And we had Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee people there. And that very issue was discussed because we are different from Nashville. We're different from Little Rock. We're different from Louisville. All cities that we're often compared to, we're different than they are. Chattanooga is in a little bit of the same situation that we're in because they've got Georgia and Alabama that border them. But even more so than Chattanooga, we're different because of our MSA is so much more concentrated. So we've got to think of creative ways to work, and we can do that through pilots. We can do it through other types of infrastructure incentives, but we really just don't have a great deal going for us. What we do have going for us is that we have a very low cost of living in a very urban environment. People complain about our tax rate being high, but we're still, from an affordability standpoint, we're a very affordable community, and we have got to look at those things that really sell our community. And if we can get our schools in good shape, if we can have our property values affordable, if we can affect crime and get crime under control.
And crime was down, we have just 3 minutes left in the show. Crime was down 6% last year in the whole area, violent crime and all that. So your role in that is what?
Well, again, public safety is a basic function of county government. If you look at the definition of what county government is responsible for covering is education, safety, and health are the 3 main pillars. And if you think what all falls under that, education, safety, and health, it covers a pretty broad territory. It's interesting, I was talking to one of my counterparts in another large city, and he was saying how they had been successful was the fact that they sold the fact that they had good schools, they had a low crime rate, and they had amenities. They had beautiful parks, they had greenways, they had the theater, they had the ballet, the community theater. If we can build the infrastructure of amenities within our community, that will go a long way toward really selling our community, and then we don't have to rely as much on pilots.
Okay. Bill, just a couple minutes left.
All right. We were at the Electrolux opening just a while back there, and what happened when we got Mitsubishi, there was this euphoria at first, and then there was kind of this concern about, do we have workers adequately trained for it? Where do you think we are in terms of workforce investment and getting the right workers in the right jobs at those new.
Well, we're recognizing that we still have much to do to prepare our workforce for the 21st century. In our industrial readiness training program, where we have gotten some support from the state, we're using Southwest Tennessee Community College to help us work with some of those people that need some brushing up on their basic skills. It's a concentrated 8-week program that helps us get those folks ready for the market today. Our challenge, Bill, is really twofold. We've got to continue to invest in industrial readiness training programs that very quickly ramp up the skill set of our workforce. But then also, it tells us that our public education system has really got to be strengthened to work on those core values. I've got to put in a plug for one thing that Superintendent Hobson is doing right now with the school system. He's identified elementary reading level as being a priority of his administration, focusing on grades 1 through 3, getting our students up to skill level. Right now, about 30% of our third graders are reading at grade level. We've got to do better than that. So we've got to start working on our public education system to ramp up this workforce, and then in the short term, work on our industrial readiness training programs where we tailor programs to the needs of the particular industry. And we have worked with Electrolux in that area. We've worked with many other industries in that area, and that'll continue to be a priority.
And we just, 20 seconds left. You are filed for re-election?
I have drawn my petition. I intend to run for re-election this year.
And when, that's in
August.
In August. Primary's coming up. Okay, thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Eric.
Bill.
Bill.
Thank you for joining us. Join us again next week. Good night.